What is up, YouTube? Dottz Gaming here, and today I'm bringing you guys my latest Magicka DK build creation, and I'm calling it the Undead build. This build is basically what I've been trying to do since Summerset was released, which was recreating my old Dragon Spirit build, the dual wield resto build that I ran back in Dragon Bones that pretty much just got neutered with Summerset and the changes to staves and empowerment and how that all worked. Basically, in my opinion, for Magicka, especially Magicka DK, I don't think dual wield is that great anymore. You have to make too many concessions to really run it, in my opinion, and in a lot of situations where people I have seen do run dual wield, I think that if they incorporated an inferno staff into their build instead, I do think their builds would be a little bit stronger. But again, this is just my opinion on the matter. I did try a lot of dual wield builds and tried to make dual wield work, but in my opinion, it just... the sacrifices I had to make versus what stabs offer nowadays, based on the fact that stabs did get a massive buff with Summerset, with the light attacks being buffed and stabs counting as two set pieces, I just don't think that dual wield's worth running. So this build replaced our dual wield swords with an inferno staff, and we are still running a restoration staff. Now, the other challenge that I had with Summerset and with Wolfhunter is that damage across the board went up. We saw what happened with Slodes. Moving into Wolfhunter, we see the potency of werewolves and how strong bleed builds are nowadays, and damage is just across the board extremely high. And Wizard's Riposte got nerfed, which was my main defending set on the other build, and I tried the old setup, and I just didn't feel that it had the same survivability and could live long enough to do what I needed to do, especially outnumbered. So I had to basically try to figure out how can I make light armor still tanky enough to be used? What can I do to make it so that I still have that same high damage that I liked and that I'm looking for, but I'm tanky enough to survive and be able to actually fire that damage off? And I think I figured it out. There was a lot of trial and error involved, tried a lot of different stuff, a lot of different armors, but I think now we got this build to a point that I'm really happy with it, and I am excited to show it to you guys today. Before I do get into it, though, this is just a personal opinion. This is just my build and how I play it and how I like it. If you think the build sucks, if you think it's bad, you don't have to run it. Go watch a different video. If you would do something different than me, if you would use a different gear set, a different skill, a different consumable, go ahead. I'm not holding a gun to your head. This is just how I run it. This is how I play, and this is how I found success with the build. But moving right into it, the piece that basically tied this build together and gives us the tank ability we need in light armor is Pirate Skeleton. Pirate Skeleton not only gives us a line of resistances as the one piece, which is extremely welcome in a light armor build, but it gives us major protection, while unfortunately having minor defile, but it gives us major protection for 12 seconds every 15 seconds on an 8% chance when we take damage. Now, this set is really what allowed us to keep the tankiness that we needed inside of light armor. Major protection is huge. It is huge. Reducing incoming damage by 30% combined with CP, combined with our crit resist, combined with damage shields. It's just... oh man, it is just so good. It is so good. And I know it's attached to minor defile, and that does kind of suck. But our main source of defense is Healing Ward. It's a shield, so it's a little bit less, it hurts us a little bit less than if this was a coagulating blood build, which is part of the reason why I chose to stick with resto, but I do just really like Healing Ward for builds like this. So Pirate Skeleton was my monster set choice. I did try Troll King at the recommendation of a couple of my friends. I hated the way it played, did not like it on MagDK, love it on Stamina Nightblade, hated it on my MagDK, just, oh god, could not get used to it. And Bloodspawn, I did not feel was tanky enough, unless like I would have to combine a second set with it to make Bloodspawn worth it, and I couldn't find a way to just get the damage that I wanted and get the spell power that I wanted while running that with something else. It just didn't work. I tried a lot of different combinations. I just really couldn't get it to work. But Pirate Skeleton, in my opinion, fits the bill perfectly and is what we decided to go with for our monster set. In terms of one of our 5 pieces, we are running Silks of the Sun. I am still running Sun on this build. 1 line of health, a line of Magicka, a line of spell damage, and gives us 400 flame damage on our flame damaging skills. Now, This is amazing for non-coagulating blood builds. I really, really like this set on non-coag builds. And if a build has coag on it, you'll never see me using Silks of the Sun. But builds that do not have coagulating blood on it, Sun to me becomes more favorable. I know some people love innate Axiom, but I'm a bigger fan of Sun. I value the line of health and the line of spell damage over the line of stamina and the line of critical that I get from innate Axiom. Just me. If you don't like Sun, feel free to run Axiom in the slot, but I prefer Sun here. Now, the other 5-piece may come as a surprise. You know, some MagDKs run it, but it's not as common as other sets. My other 5-piece is Julianos. Julianos gives 2 lines of spell critical, a line of max Magicka, and then flat spell damage for the 5-piece. Now, the reason I like Julianos is because, again, flat spell damage affects us offensively, affects us defensively, and just like Sun, it's just a flat buff to your stats. So you don't have to worry about uptimes like BSW. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's just flat stats to your character. But because this one is not conditional spell damage like Axiom or Sun, it affects our healing ward and our non-DK, non-flame abilities. So it just affects everything across the board. But a kind of overlooked feature of this is it does have 2 lines of spell critical. And I do think that that's pretty cool because of the fact that I'm choosing to forego a source of major sorcery to fit some of the skills in the build that I really, really want. So having the 2 lines of spell critical from Julianos helps me achieve a very respectable amount of crit, sitting at about 40% crit. So even without Major Prophecy, we still have a respectable amount of critical chance, which will help us get some big damage off on our opponents. I do understand that Burning Spell Weave in this slot would be more raw damage, but you do have the proc to deal with. It doesn't have 100% uptime. It will give you more raw damage, but me personally, I just prefer Julianos. If you wanted to try BSW here, go ahead, but this is just what I like to run. You don't have to run Sun Julianos. You could run Sun Burning Spell Weave, Axiom Burning Spell Weave, Julianos BSW, Sun Axiom. Like, you could run a bunch of different combinations of damaging sets with Pyroskeleton if you would like. I just chose to go with Julianos and Sun to what I preferred, so it's really, really up to you to decide what you like. We are, like I said, running an Inferno staff and a Restoration staff. Those are the weapons of the build. In terms of our traits, we are running full M-Pen on the body pieces, full Arcane on the jewelry, Nirnhone front bar, and an infused back bar. Enchant-wise, we are running Tri-Stats on the head, chest, legs, and then 1 small piece. I wanted to get over 24k max health, so I did choose to run a 4th Tri-Stat glyph on a glove, and then the other 3 are just simply max Magicka, and our jewelry is flat spell damage across the board for the big DPS. On our front bar, in terms of enchants or poisons, I am choosing to run sorcery draining poisons, which give minor cowardice to our target and grants me minor sorcery. Increasing the cost of their ultimates by 60%, increasing my spell power by 5%, and then it also drains Magicka from them, increasing the cost of their Magicka abilities by 30%, and restoring to me 238 Magicka per second. So I'm choosing to run these over an enchant. If you don't like poisons, if you have a moral obligation against running poisons, run a flame damage enchant front bar. But I think for the high spell damage that this build runs, having minor sorcery, a source of minor sorcery, would be really, really cool. So that is why I chose to run these poisons. And then back bar, of course, we have an infused weapon damage and spell damage enchant, giving us 452 weapon damage for 5 seconds. So very, very strong to have. Now that is what our gear setup is looking like. In terms of skills, Flame Lash, obviously. We have a 10.4 flame damage tooltip. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing flame damage tooltip. This is unbuffed. Unbuffed, we have a 10.4k Flame Lash tooltip. When it's buffed, it just goes up even higher. Flame Lash, better but spammable. Power Lash gives you a heal. More lash damage. It's just, you run it on every MagDK PvP build. Burning Embers, massive dot, gives you a huge heal when you're done. I've seen some people run without Burning Embers. I don't know how they do it. It's really, really instrumental in your healing throughput. I just would recommend running it on all your builds. It's just really, really good. I am using Shattering Rocks. You don't have to use Shattering Rocks. Fossilize is just as good, but I'm trying Shattering Rocks for this. It's only at rank 1, so this tooltip will only get bigger. But Shattering Rocks is a stun, and after the stun is over, if the enemy uses an attack within 4 seconds, it heals its target for 8k instead. So pretty cool skill. If you don't like Shattering Rocks, or if you prefer the root from Fossilize, go ahead and run Fossilize. Neither is a bad choice in this situation. Just run whichever morph you prefer. Oh man, it feels good to have Empowering Chains back on my front bar. I miss this skill so much, man. Let me tell you, I love this skill. It is great. Being able to pull ourselves to our opponent. We deal a respectable amount of damage now because it's on our front bar and it is being boosted so much. And it gives us Empower, which is actually now worth it because we're using a staff, increasing the damage of our next 2 light attacks by 40%. And then we also get Major Expedition, increasing your movement speed by 30% for 6 seconds. And this can also neither be dodged or reflected. So you're getting there no matter what. I love this skill. Do not run the other morph. The other morph sucks. I've seen other people run the other morph, and I don't know why. The other morph is not nearly as good because the other morph causes your opponent to be technically CC'd. So if you pull somebody to you, you cannot CC them immediately afterwards. If you use Empowering Chains on somebody, when you get there, you can hit them with a Fossilize or a Shattering Rocks. But if you pull someone to you, that person was technically CC'd during the pull duration, so they get CC immunity. I don't think that's worth it at all. I think if you're running that, you need to try Empowering Chains. It's a lot better. I don't think Unrelenting Grip is worth it at all. We also have Elemental Drain. On a light armor build, this shit is nuts. You have so much penetration between CP, your light armor passives, and LE Drain, and this also gives us a crap ton of sustain, 600 effective Magicka recovery. So it really allows us to run a lot lower Magicka recovery on the build because we have access to Elemental Drain. We also have Ferocious Leap, sporting almost an 18.7k flame damage tooltip unbuffed. Very strong. Not quite the 20k that I had on my other build, but still really big tooltip. Can't say enough good stuff about the skill. Cheap costing ultimate, deals a lot of damage, stuns, you get a max damage shield. Just a really good skill all around. Back bar. Degeneration, I prefer this vastly over Structured Entropy. This is our form of Major Sorcery, and I also prefer this way over the one from Earthen Heart. Molten Armaments. Vastly prefer this over Molten Armaments as well. The amount of... If you look at like the cost versus how long you have Major Sorcery for, this vastly outweighs the... Molten Armaments in terms of like cost to duration ratio. This is significantly better. We also get our Mage's Guild passives. We get another dot. And then our light and heavy attacks have a chance to heal us for 140% of the damage caused. So not only do we have the empowers from casting this skill and from casting Empowering Chains, we're going to get healed for that damage. And because we're running staffs, where they're actually respectable amounts of damage. So this is just really good. I also don't like Structured Entropy, because Structured Entropy really just makes your execution range bigger. Really not a huge fan of it. So Degeneration, in my opinion, is the way to go. We also have Healing Ward. This is our main source of mitigation. Part of the reason that you run a Restoration Staff is just really strong. Heals you for a little bit, gives you a damage shield. It's increased by up to 300% depending on the severity of your wounds. And then when you're expired, you're healed for 133% of the remaining strength. Just a really great skill. Volatile Armor is our source of major resolve and ward. Don't really need to say much more about this. We are running Reflective Plate. I do think a key part of running light armor is not being attached to Vampirism. With the buffs to Reflective Plate recently, I now think it is a viable substitute over Mist Form. I'm of the opinion right now that if you do not absolutely need to run Mist Form, you should be running. You shouldn't be running Vampirism. I've run into a lot of situations lately when I was using Mist Form where I wish I had Reflective Plate, or I wished I had Wings. It's really good currently. I've been enjoying the skill a lot. And I would definitely recommend giving it a try. If you do want to run Mist Form and Vampirism, in my opinion, you do need to be on a tankier build. I am not currently running it on any of my builds. My Unchained build has it listed on the website, and because I do believe that build can run it. It's a heavy armor build. It uses Blood Spawn. It is tanky enough to deal with the Vampirism, and the mobility for Mist Form is nice, but I just don't think Vampirism's worth it for this build anymore, so we are running Reflective Plate as our main mobility tool. We are running Deep Thoughts. Deep Thoughts is awesome. Awesome. I needed to put a skill for this spot, was debating for a while about what to place here, and then when Deep Thoughts kind of jumped out at me, I was like, duh, I need to put this here. It gives you all your resource pools back whenever you can get a minute to LOS. Really helps you gain everything back in between fights. It's just an awesome skill. It also is what allows us to basically not change this build at all in Battlegrounds. I run the exact same setup in BGs, change nothing. And Deep Thoughts is what allows us to do that because it gives us so much recovery. If I'm fighting people in BGs and I get, begin to get low on resources, I just quickly dodge roll into LOS, channel Deep Thoughts for a second or two, and then go back into the fight. It's awesome. Definitely recommend getting this. If you do not have the Psijic Order, if you cannot run this, I would recommend Harness Magicka instead. It is a second shield option that will help your sustain a little bit. You may need to run a recovery glyph if you do not run Deep Thoughts. That is going to be something you have to work on and test yourself. But I'm running Deep Thoughts, and I've been enjoying it. And then our final ultimate is Life Giver. We are running this over Light's Champion. This gives us a massive hot, and then we also cast Regeneration, Blessing of Protection, and Steadfast Ward at no cost. And if you have those 3 skills morphed, it will cast the morphed version of those skills. So I recommend, if you're using Life Giver, you need to level up those 3 skills and also morph them. Now, people are going to say, that's why you're not running Light's Champion. We already have a source of major protection from Pirate Skeleton. We do not need a second one from a skill, so I am choosing to go with Life Giver instead. And in terms of the morphs that I went with Rapid Regeneration, obviously Healing Ward, and then I went with Blessing of Restoration, not Combat Prayer. If I'm using this ultimate, odds are I am super defensive, so I want the big heals, and I want the big heals now. And plus, this also gives us Minor Resolve and Minor Ward for 15 seconds, which is very nice, so it'll just help us be even tankier when we are in a shitty situation like that. In terms of other flex skills, Chains is not mandatory. I love it. I know some people aren't the biggest fan. I would recommend, if you do not want to run Chains, in its place, I would either run Burning/Choking Talons, or I would run Draw Essence in its place. Really up to you. I love Chains. I think Chains plus Reflective Plate gives you a ton of mobility, which is something a DK can't normally say. So I've been enjoying it a lot. Now, in terms of our stats, we are rocking 36.6k maximum magicka, 24.1k max health. We have 12.6k max stam, which is plenty. I have found that that's a really, really good spot. We have enough to dodge roll, CC break, do what we got to do. We have 1100 magicka recovery, which is enough for me. If you feel like you need more, throw on a recovery glyph. Go ahead. But for me, between Elemental Drain, Deep Thoughts, I have plenty of recovery. This is enough for me. We have 2473 plus 400 from Sun. So now we have 2873 unbuffed spell damage. It's pretty damn awesome. And we have about 40% spell critical. We're sitting at about almost 18k spell resist and 12.5k physical resist with 2800 critical resist. We sport some really good stats for this build. And then in terms of, our resistances are a little high because of the defensive scroll, but it is only 2% higher. So they're close. They're similar. In terms of buff food, we are running the Witch Mother's Potent Brew. You can also run Clockwork Citrus Fillet here. It's up to you and what you can afford. We are running the Mage Mundus. I know some people are going to be like, why aren't you running the Apprentice? The difference in effectiveness between the Apprentice and the Mage is like, I think if it's not 7 Divines, if you're running no Divines, I'm pretty sure the effective spell power distance is either like, it's like 30. It's barely anything between the Apprentice and the Mage. And I would much rather sacrifice that teeny tiny bit of spell damage for a bigger resource pool, which would make me go out of Magicka less. So I am running the Mage Mundus. If you want to squeeze every ounce of damage out of your tune, then yeah, maybe go Apprentice. But I think the Mage is significantly better. In terms of potions, we are running either Tri-Stat Potions, or we are running, I run 3 potions. I run Tri-Stat Pots, I run Immovability Pots that also restore health and Magicka, and then I also run Detect Pots that grant Magicka Restoration as well. So those are the 3 potions I run on the build. In terms of our champion points, again, these are just what I run. Champion points are very customizable. Go ahead and move these how you like them. 32 into Blessed. I'm going a little heavier into Blessed than I normally do due to the fact that we do get Minor Defile. 56 into Elfborn, 64 into Elemental Expert, 36 into Spell Erosion, 72 into Master at Arms, and none into Thaumaturge. This is not a dot heavy build at all, so we do not need any points in Thaumaturge. We have 56 points into Ironclad, 42 into Resistant, 56 into Thick Skin to help deal with all the bleed builds we've been facing recently, 43 into Hardy, and 32 into Elemental Defender. I go a little bit heavier into Hardy because DKs naturally have higher spell resist due to our passives, so I tend to dip a little bit heavier in a Hardy than Elemental Defender, and then 31 into Bastion because our main defensive tool is Healing Ward. We have 19 into Siphoner, 25 into Sprinter, 56 into Warlord, 75 into Arcanist, 19 into Tenacity, and 66 into Tumbling. I know some people are morally against using Siphoner. If you don't want to put any points in here, place them other places, but with how my CP kind of fell and how I was testing things, I had the points to spare, so I chucked 19 points in a Siphoner. But if you don't like these here, like I said, you can move 10 more points in a Warlord, maybe put some more points in a Sprinter, dump some more into Tenacity, really up to you. But for me, I like those points there. And then that is our CP layout. So that is the build, guys. This build has been a ton of fun. Really, really like using it. And if you like a really high damage, high mobile playstyle that is tanky enough to survive and do what it needs to do, give this a shot. You are obviously not as tanky as a heavy armored sword and board build, but trust me, this will be able to survive enough while in light armor to do what you got to do. The build's a ton of fun, and I definitely recommend giving it a shot. But if you guys like the build, if you've tried it, used it before, think it's really good, I'd appreciate it if you hit a thumbs up. For more ESO content, MagDK PvP, guides, and just great overall stuff here on the YouTube channel. I appreciate it if you hit that sub button, as well as hit the bell to keep notifications on. I want to thank you guys for stopping by and watching this video today. Leave any comments below if you have any questions. And yeah, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Dottz Gaming, and I'll see you in the next video.